Good evening, everyone. Hope everyone's doing well. Tonight's broadcast, we're going to be discussing what's in the shop. It's going to be some useful information. Just going to wait for everything to come online. Ready to get today started. This evening's broadcast. Keep on trucking with confidence. Trust our expert team for lightning fast semi-truck repairs and professional express services that keep you on the road mile after mile. How we looking out there? Let me get a radio check. I just want to ensure everything is online correctly. Looks like everything's finally coming in. Just looking for the live feed, everybody. Let me know where you're watching from. As I mentioned, today I'm going to be discussing different repairs that are in our shop. I'm Adam with TAT Express. I am also an ASC certified medium and heavy duty diesel technician. And as I mentioned, let's go ahead and get this broadcast started. One of the first items I'd like to follow up with here is a overhaul on a DD15 that's in our shop. This job here is a pretty large job. I wanted to cover it yesterday's broadcast, but I didn't get enough time. Mesquite's in the house. Mesquite's really close to us. We're just off of Interstate 20 and exit 472 if you're looking for express professional service. Get some insight into our shop. We're going to move over to the share screen, so we'll move on to our first truck. Now, this is a DD15 engine that suffered low oil pressure. There was a couple spun rod bearings. This is the engine here, stood up vertically. Now these are main caps here, main caps 3, 4, 5, and then of course those are your connection rods. You can see your connection rods. So this particular truck had a failure on this part here, which is the oil pickup tube manifold. Now you can see it's made out of plastic, and the section up top, this section here is the section that broke. You can see that missing piece. So when this happened, it lost oil pressure and spun a couple of the rod bearings. I brought that up before. And this is the rear housing. The DD15 is a rear gear train engine. So a lot of the major work, anything to the gear train, the engine will need to be pulled out. A lot of the modern engines are moving over to this rear gear train style engine. Cummins still has the front gear train. Shout out to everyone that's joined us this evening. I know it's Friday. Probably everyone's just getting off work, getting paid. So they don't want to know anything about their trucks. I guess you can call me a gearhead. This is interesting. When I mentioned about having all the correct information when working on particular trucks like this, this is just a great example. When you're dealing with gear housing and timing and gear lash, measuring gear lash, you want to make sure everything is correct. So if you are in the market for a truck repair shop, shopping with us with confidence, you get on the road. We got lightning fast semi truck repairs, and as I mentioned, we're professional. Shout out to everyone that's joined us this evening. If you need our information, it's in the description of this video. We're gonna move on to the next repair. If you have any questions, chat seems like they're out and about this evening. It's Friday. Nobody is worried about work. But appreciate everyone that's joined us this evening. If you want to hit us up on Super Chat. One thing I'd want to repeat about this one here is when you're rebuilding a DD15, there are guidelines for reusable parts or parts that are not worn enough where you cannot use them anymore. So the DD15 has some strict guidelines. So they are rebuildable, but under strict guidelines, and they just want to ensure that none of these mains have spun. Anytime a main bearing has spun, which is the main area of the crankshaft, it's going to damage the block. So it's better just to replace a 3/4 block. And then in some particular instances, like in this particular scenario, here, warranty is covering this engine. So a warranty is covering this engine. So when that happens, a warranty is going to be a like new, but so it's not completely, it is a full rebuild, but it's going to be like new. Not in warranty. When you're following warranty guidelines, they have guidelines for parts that are still reusable to save. And I mean, a lot of some of these items are still good, but there are strict limits. And as I mentioned, if it's a spun main, no, I wouldn't consider rebuilding this particular engine. But having the right equipment is very important. It takes a lot of strain off of the technicians, so they're able to concentrate and get the job done with a lot more. They're a lot more relaxed. It's still a job. It's still a challenging task to rebuild any engine, but this makes it just a little bit more easier. So we also provide digital courtesy inspections and quality control inspections. These types of inspections help empower our owner operators, our customers, with valuable insight on the conditions of their semi truck. So if you're in the market, check us out. Our information is in the description box. I got a link there to our Google. So yeah, these engines you can work on them. The equipment, we have lifts that helps the technician as well. And working on any type of automobile, when it comes to comfort, it kind of starts playing a big role whenever you're trying to give out that quality service. Shout out to everybody that's joined us this evening. Appreciate everyone. Before I move on to our next repair that's in the shop, I wanted to give you guys a little bit of an update as well. I saw a interesting article earlier today, and excuse me, if you watch any of our other broadcasts, you will see that I've mentioned the nearshoring that's happening, which is reversing all the offshoring, all the manufacturing that went overseas. Now it's going into Mexico, and we're predictably going to become the trade center of the globe again, and also manufacturing. So this is another story that I read, and this is Volvo's building a new truck plant in Mexico. So Volvo Thursday, which is today's Friday, just yesterday they said that they have plans to build a 1.7 million square foot heavy duty truck manufacturing plant in Mexico to supplement the US based productions. Now, this is, in addition, in this article, it also mentions how with the Mexico plant located in the city, they didn't name the city for some reason, but Volvo is joining rivals in the cross-border manufacturing So Daimler's already out there, which is DD15s. Daimler Packard is out there as well. Navstar, the announcement comes as Mexico passes China as the top U.S. exporter partner. Interesting. So as I mentioned in other broadcasts, how a lot of the political relationships and deterioration of those relationships changed how freight is being moved. But so all this, nearshoring and reversing everything that's out there is going to take a little bit of time, but it's just very interesting to know, seeing that Volvo is moving out there as well. Shout out to everyone that's joined us this evening. I know it's Friday. Nobody wants to be working or talking about trucks, but we're here. I'm here. We're gonna move on to this next job. That was really just an update on that rebuild, and I would like to still give out information. That was a low oil pressure failure, so be sure to keep up with preventive maintenance. Preventive maintenance is very important. I know you hear me repeat this time and time again, but remember, it's like clockwork. Your semi truck needs regular maintenance to keep running smoothly and safely. So don't wait too late. If that rig needs some TLC, reach out to us today. All our contact info is in the description of this video. So this next one is a 3-box oil change. Common. We see this pretty often in the shops. All right, let's move on over here. So we like to mark the boxes. Now it's called a 3-box change because usually you're going to replace the oil in the transmission, and you're going to replace the oil in the differentials as well. You want to do them combined, and we always mark them with paint markers. We also mark them just to make sure if anybody has messed with them or anything like that. It's a very common practice that technicians do, and I'll give you some more examples of marking their work, just to make sure no one else kind of comes behind them. And also this just helps anybody else down the line. So if somebody is from out of state, and if you're from out of state, check us out. If you're passing through and looking for some preventive maintenance and some more information on your truck, as I mentioned, we offer digital courtesy inspections and quality control inspections, which empower the owner operators with valuable insight into the condition of your semi truck. So here in this 3-box change, we mark it in case you have, maybe later on down the line when you're not in the area and you need to do it if you're not local. For the local people, we welcome repeat business, but we mark them. Technicians are going to mark them. As I mentioned, we take pride in our work. There's not a lot of people that still take pride in their work, and I mean, it's another reason why I'm here now. I mean, I'm still taking pride in my work. As long as we can get our information out and somebody is gonna learn from this video, definitely getting our work out. So this is a DT12 automated. I mentioned this in some of my other broadcasts, how a lot of the manufacturers are starting to come out with their own drive lines as well, and this is a prime example. Detroit. Now it's a good transmission. It does have its flaws, but just like anything, it just needs maintenance. It's pretty solid transmission. You're gonna need to do your maintenance on this as well. And what I do like about it is, since it is an automated system, you can really kind of do functionality tests without having to tear anything apart. So in the 3-box change, as I mentioned, you want to go ahead and do your differentials as well. Differentials can be neglected very often. In this particular model, you can see in this model here, you can see that he has a temp sensor. Not all differentials are going to have this, But we had a viewer that commented on us before on one of our, he had a, in chat, made a comment about how he replaced this sensor, the one that actually screws into this differential housing, and he said because it wasn't reading on his gauge. So I recommended to troubleshoot the harness here. You can see how this harness is just ran here, and the manufacturers do a good job to kind of guide the cables and guide the harnesses as much as possible. But if you're looking at high mileage, then that's when you start having electrical problems. This wiring still looks in good condition. This harness looks in good condition, but as you can see as well, look at the mileage. It's 300,000 miles. So this is when they're changing it. So it's still considered low mileage. 500,000 would be not high mileage. That's probably would be on a B1 rated engine, or an engine that's rated to go over 1 million miles. At 500,000 miles, it's basically 50% of its life expectancy. And a lot of that is going to depend on your maintenance. So as I mentioned, it's like clockwork, that your semi truck needs that regular maintenance. So keep it running for the long haul. Shout out to everyone that's joined us this evening. I'm gonna get to your questions here. Yeah, if you stop by the shop and you haven't seen me, you've probably seen you. But at the same time, we have the manpower there that needs to get everything done. Everyone's in very close communication. I know pretty much everything that I've shared with you in the shop is basically going on in real time. So what I'm sharing, the insight that I'm sharing with you, is items that I help troubleshoot, and I don't take the credit for everything, but we just monitor. We monitor everything. We discuss. We're all in a group communicating. So if you passed by and you didn't see me at the shop, don't worry. I am definitely connected on what's going on, and your feedback is what we depend on as well. So I appreciate you joining us this evening and also being a customer. If you're interested in getting service with us to keep your truck running with confidence, give us a shout. All our information is in the description box. Thanks again for joining us. Rate these engines: PACCAR, Cummins, Detroit, Mack, Volvo engines. You know, I'm a gearhead, so I can find good things and bad things on every platform. But what I can tell you, Juan, is maintenance. I know that I'm always repeating that, but it's very important that you keep up with maintenance no matter what you have in your truck. So keep up with that maintenance. I couldn't tell you a best or worst, because there has been a best and there's been a worst in every platform that I've seen that you've mentioned. Platform, PACCARs, Macks, Volvos, Detroit, Cummins, there's good and bad. And a lot of it comes down to preventive maintenance or maintenance. It really just comes down to if that equipment has been maintained, is really what it comes down to. We're going to move on to our next repair in our shop. Now this here is a overhead valve adjustment. I know you guys hear this often, so we're going to discuss this. Got some video here. Now what we do, let me move over to this. I'm going to go ahead and move this over to the next screen. So this is a video, and the viewer that commented that he didn't see me at the shop, I see this here in real time. So rest assured, everyone's in contact, eyes are on everything. So this is a video of what we'll do is measure the valve adjustments before we conduct them, and this is just to also let the customers see this information as well. These videos are part of our inspection routines that we do. As I mentioned before, we offer comprehensive digital courtesy and quality control inspections. And this is what I mean by this. This type of videos and this type of recording and giving this information over so that you guys, say for example, if we had a driver come in and he's doing preventive maintenance like you're supposed to, and you are supposed to adjust these overhead valves, any overhead valves at 500,000 miles and every 200,000 miles after that. So if you are properly running a maintenance schedule, you should not really feel a difference, because if you want to keep good fuel mileage, you're going to keep up with your valve adjustments, because the way that these valve adjustments are working, or what they're doing, is these rocker arms here, this rocker arm pushes this valve bridge that's under this gauge. There's a valve bridge, and what that valve bridge does, it just connects both valves. Let me zoom in. See, it's not letting me zoom in. Can't zoom in. So this valve bridge here connects these two valves that are sitting together, and the same as over here, you can see a valve bridge on this side as well. And this allows one rocker arm, a single rocker arm, to push two valves down. So as you can see, that's a lot of stress on these particular components. And over time, the springs get weaker. These adjustments, which are very fine adjustments, you can see the measurement of the filler gauge, which is the thickness of this gauge, it's very, very minimal. So all this needs to be nice, and the clearance needs to be within clearance to run efficiently. So over time, these valves definitely need to be adjusted. Let me get some water down. Appreciate you letting me take this water break. But as you can see, he's checking how much force it's taking to get that filler gauge out of there, showing that it's tight. So that way we can show afterward, before and after as well. I appreciate all our technicians, everyone that's all their hard work. This is the Jake brakes, or the engine brakes. So what an engine brake does, it just keeps the valve from shutting all the way and kind of retards the cylinder. But the engine brakes also need to be adjusted every time you adjust the valves. It's very important, and not every shop is going to invest in buying all the right tools. Like these filler gauges they're not too expensive, they're inexpensive, but these specialty tools like these are gaps that you need. There are gaps. Filler gauges a lot larger, and there are some engines that have special tools that you need to conduct valve adjustments, like the PACCAR. Here's another video. Shout out to Ivan, technician that shot this video. Outstanding work. Someone that takes pride in his work. All our guys take pride in their work. You can see it in our work. You can see it in the work. So this one is loose. You can see he's able to move the filler gauge and show how loose it is. So what's very important to understand is each one of these have adjustments, and this adjustment looks like it's going to be on the back side of it. So valve adjustments at every 500,000 miles. Ensure to get that done. Appreciate everyone that's joined us this evening. Let's check out, see what chat has to talk about. If you want to get your comment highlighted, hit us up on Super Chat. I have a 2009 Freightliner Columbia 14 liter, a code 128. 128, it just, there's that. Lewis has a comment about a 2009 Freightliner with a code 128. 128 just lets you know that it's a 128 just lets you know that it's an ECM error, or that the ECM is reading the error. There's still more to go on that description. Yeah, that was I appreciate you. Appreciate that question or that comment. If you can give me the rest of the description on that ECM, then let me know. Volvo has good performance on the D13. It sure does. Yep. Most of these engines are rated around the same horsepower and torque, so they all aim for that same 500 and 1800 foot-pounds of torque. Got a comment here on the chat about about an International. International has, that's a tough engine. You know, I did see someone on a viewer that commented in the chat on one of our other videos or one of our other broadcasts that brought that up. That brought that they had a Pro Star with International that was able to make it past 1 million miles. I was pretty curious about the maintenance, because maintenance is very important. It's like I mentioned, it's like clockwork. Regular maintenance is like clockwork. You got to keep it moving. Give us a shout if you need that information. Our information is in the description. This next item that's in the shop, this was on the light duty that we did the transmission on. I don't know if you recall that, but we had a light duty. This one also came in with multiple problems. It had the transmission failed on it, and I shared some items that we saw in the oil. The transmission had to be replaced, and this was derated engine as well. And it was derated because of this particular sensor here was built up with excessive soot. So it wasn't reading accurately to the ECM, causing a derate. So if you have a truck with a after treatment system, around the 500,000 mile mark is whenever, of course, you're going to be replacing the DPF filters. And I would also recommend doing a EGR cooler cleaning and check these sensors as well. Checking, this is an exhaust pressure sensor, and it has excessive soot buildup and is reading incorrectly. So this was able to clear this up for them. And it is something that's common. It is a common problem that you're going to see on a semi. And when you have a truck that has an after treatment system, and any kind of sensor that's not reading correctly is going to end up derating the truck. and I know that the rates can be a pain. Nobody likes to deal with the derated truck. Cleveland's in the house. Thank you for joining us again. Yes, sir. Juan, thank you for joining us. Appreciate that comment. Well, I got a comment here about prices on labor, and prices is going to vary. It's kind of like if you have a project that you want to take care of in your house, you're going to probably shop it and you're going to have different prices. Now, the quality, and one thing I'd like to highlight is we just got a comment from a 5-star review from a customer, a recent customer, and it's just a recent 5-star review. Thanks for that review. And in that review, he basically says it as short as it can be, that price, it comes at a cost. Cheap labor comes at a cost. Okay, if they're not experienced, if they're not using the right equipment, if they're not investing in the right tools, if they're not, I mean, just as you as a truck driver would not want to run at a lower than fair rate. So keep all these items in mind when anytime you're looking for. And another thing is this type, having the know-how, the skills, and the patience to be able to work on any equipment or any trade, and be professional about it is not an easy task. We strive to provide the best service in the area, in our line of business, and we won't let up with this. That's what we'll do. So, but a good question. And I know that you were kind of seeing what you're gauging. What type of quality work are you getting? Are you having comebacks? And I'm not saying that comebacks will never happen. Comebacks will happen. But if there's processes in place, procedures in place to help mitigate that, then it's probably going to be worth paying for when it comes to getting service done. And you can see the differences even if you get an automobile service. So as I mentioned before, we do comprehensive digital inspection, courtesy inspections, and quality control inspections that give you more insight on your vehicle. And this is all information that we try to, even if you're not coming in for a particular service, and I know some people might be irritated, but just hear us that we'd rather inform you about your vehicle and let you decide whether or not you want to get that service or not, and instead of us making the decision that you won't get that done, and then later on down the line something comes up and how come that last mechanic didn't tell us about it. So it's very challenging to be able to offer good service time and time again on multiple trucks. I appreciate everyone that's joined us this evening. We're going to move on to the next repair. If you got any questions about your truck and you want to highlight, let me know. What is the price on the comment says, what's the price on a valve adjustment? Anywhere from $500-$600, depending on if any gaskets need to be replaced. It's a rough estimate. If you play this 10 years down the road, I don't know what it's gonna be then. Yeah, that was a tappet set and on a Volvo. Appreciate that comment. Thanks for joining us this evening. Everybody's out and about. It's Friday. Ain't nobody worry about their truck. All right, let's move on. What else do we have? We have a wheel seal, and this is a disc brake. This is a disc brake setup. So if you're worried that you have a disc brake and you need a wheel service done, we also replace service brakes. Disc brakes are becoming more common, but at the same time, they're not because of their cost. The cost to run disc brakes is a lot higher. I couldn't give you a exact multiplier, but it maybe twice as much to run. This is why brake drums, and brake shoes are still around because of the cost. But the effectiveness of disc brakes compared to drum brakes, there's no comparison. Disc brakes are way superior. Way superior. They can stop. Now, these are large. These are large. Now, these are I'm not sure why they're not drilled, but as you can see, I mean, they're not, this is not some light stuff. So I'm surprised they're not drilled to at least improve the cooling. Maybe they're not drilled just to save on cost. But disc brakes are a lot more effective. They're a lot more effective, and they still also run on air. If you guys are familiar with disc brakes in the automotive industry, most of the time your brakes are ran hydraulically or air over hydraulic. On semi trucks, that are mostly everything is ran by air, and that's why there's guidelines that they have to manufacture these air systems. There's safety precautions in place. So if you have a air tank that's not building up correctly, that's why you have two tanks. You have one and two, in case one fails. You always have an additional tank, and that's a safety measure that the manufacturers were required to do by the federal government, so that they have any kind of failures on their brake systems. There's always an additional tank, and those tanks are separate. So if you do have an issue with one tank not building right, or you have one building really solid and another one not, that could be indications of valves going bad on the inside of that tank. So get that checked out. But we offer this type of service as well. Disc brake service, regular brake service. Remember, like I said, it's like clockwork. Maintenance is like clockwork. Let me get some water, get a break. Check out these images. Let me know what kind of questions you got. Let me know where you're watching from. Juan says, how would you go about locating a good heavy duty diesel mechanic shop? Now, what do you search? How would you search a good restaurant? Or how would you search, a good restaurant? I would use the same practice. Yeah, and I can't tell you that's 100%. I mean, that would be good. That would be good. And the only reason why I was kind of, as a business owner, sometimes your Google, if you don't keep up with your Google profile, for some reason we had pictures on our profile that had photos and videos from people from India. I don't know how those got on there. Shout out to India, but it took until a business keeps up with their profile, then there could be just some random photos on there. But I would still do the same. I would do the same. And I mentioned that because we built our channel before And then that's when everyone just kind of started finding us. But I would do the same thing. Central Florida. I know there's a lot of work all over. So you should be able to find a mechanic easily. All right. Appreciate everyone that's joined us. We're going to keep on moving. Don't mean to smack in your ear. Let's circle back right here. You want to make sure to torque everything correctly. If you notice, if you're getting your truck worked on and you're an owner operator and you notice they're kind of skipping steps, not torquing, items like that, those are very cautious to look out for. You want to be very cautious on those types of shops. And I can understand as a technician, it can be challenging to keep up with everything. This next job is a rear flywheel housing. This is on a Cummins, as you can easily tell from the color. So anytime you have a large leak like this, you can see that it's wet. I always mention you want to trace it from the top first, because engine oil always is going to collect right here. It's going to collect at the bottom of the lowest part of the engine. Lowest rear part of the engine is where the oil is going to collect. In this particular case, we found, and with the mileage and everything, it is the flywheel housing. And in that type of repair, this is going to be resealed again. Doesn't look too old. It looks like a gasket. You can see how this gasket sticking out. Doesn't look old. It looks fairly new. So maybe somebody thought it was the oil pan gasket and replaced the oil pan gasket. I mean, it's possible, because it is. Look at that. That's a new nut. You see that? So we haven't touched this truck. We've only done inspections and cleaned it a little bit, and we spot cleaned it to run it and try to isolate it, and we came to the conclusion it is the rear housing, the rear flywheel housing. But as you can see, there's evidence here. You can see how this bolt is a lot newer than this bolt. You can see the difference in that. And then you can also see the gasket. It looks new. And look at the comparison. You see how there's still kind of red paint, old red paint knocked off the bolt. This one looks newer, no paint. Those are indicators of recent repairs. I mean, and there's no problem. I mean, there's nothing wrong that he wants to get it fixed. If the pan was super bad, it's possible the pan was leaking too. One thing about oil leaks is a leak is going to go through the least resistance, the path of least resistance. Okay, just like so kind of like electricity, as I was gonna say, and kind of like water, it's gonna go the path with the least amount of resistance. So if you have a big oil leak, so the oil is gonna pass through that, because the oil leaks, say it's heavy, and you fix it. Oh, okay, let me fix that. It's gonna put pressure on other smaller leaks that were maybe not be too noticeable at the time, because you had this heavier oil leak. So if you fix one leak, just keep in mind, especially with an engine that could have high mileage, that it's possible that you could have some more leaks pop up. So let's move on to this next image. Now this particular job, this is a separate job here. This is not the same truck, but this is a rear housing as well. This is a similar type of leak, but this one, what you're seeing here, this is the flywheel housing, and instead of the oil pan being on the left side, compared to the image, compared to the last image, this one is on the right side. So we're on the different side of the truck, but we're looking through the peephole of the flywheel housing, and as you can see, we have indicators of leakage. Now the additional photos I have are of this same truck. This is the same truck. Looks like oil coming from this section of the motor as well. So what we would recommend is, looks like he has some on the front as well. Shout out to Ivan. You can see this oil leak right here. You can see that oil leak. Now to find exactly where these, you can see how this is just a plug. This is a plug here. That plug would just need to be replaced. This is just a plug, rubber plug on the front. But this here is going to be a component leaking. Let's go back to that one. Back to this one real quick. This is on the front of the housing on a Cummins. Now Cummins has this is a sight hole actually. So this is just a rubber plug. Now there's no disassembly that needs to be done. If you replace this rubber plug and you still have signs of oil in other places like around this plate, then it would be front cover. Let's go to some other. That's a component. Let's get down to this. Let's zoom into this component. You can see this actual this component is leaking right here. Leaking oil. Now, as I mentioned, if you find one leak, it's possible you can have more. This is a tighter view of the rear housing, rear flywheel housing. This section here is a flywheel housing. This section is a block. You can see indications of oil. Just makes a mess, especially in these very tight places. Very tight places. So this is as I mentioned, rear flywheel housing. Very common as well on all trucks. A lot of the red engines, Cummins, you see this often on this one. since we're discussing flywheels, I would like to highlight, if you're getting a clutch replaced, ensure that you're getting, and you had a clutch replaced recently, I would recommend, and the manuals are going to suggest this as well, mostly anything that's been repaired on the engine, or this would go for any repair, to be honest with you, is to check it again within 90 days, and then just keep an eye on it. Transmissions, if I did a video on transmission maintenance, and one of the preventive maintenance items is retorquing the transmission bolts. That's not something that's very commonly done, but the manual says. And what happens is this transmission is huge. It's 800 pounds in some cases. That's on the light side. Heavy transmission. It's a massive hunk of just metal. So, of course, this engine, sometimes they're only bolted to the back of this flywheel housing. That's the only thing that's supporting. So they're hanging off the back of this engine. And a lot of these designs are like that. They just bolt on the back, kind of like a car. There's no transmission support. There's no bracket or anything that kind of helps. In some models there are, but in most models there's not a support to help carry the transmission. It's just hanging on the back of the engine. So when it's manufactured, there's no issues. The transmission and truck is the transmission and engine is mated, and they don't come apart again until a clutch goes bad. So when they do come apart again, that's whenever it's possible that you can have that transmission come loose, because now it's grabbing. If it's a fresh transmission and a fresh clutch, it's grabbing a lot harder. There's the torque is back to what it was when it was brand new, but the flywheel housing that's holding that transmission is not new. So it's possible that you can have some issues with the flywheel housing. So flywheel housings mostly are made out of aluminum, and they are a lot of stress. There's a lot of stress on this particular component. It's not, if you look at it, this is the section of the flywheel housing right here. This section right here is the flywheel housing. Now it's aluminum and it's bolted to the back of this engine. Okay, and then it holds on this side. It's bolts a 800-pound transmission, and that's very similar how all engines are made. Now, older engines, I remember having a bracket on the back of the transmission, and it would assist with the load of the transmission. But not all of them are doing it, like I mentioned. Not all of them are doing it anymore. So that's one maintenance thing that's overlooked as well. These, you can see the bolts here to the transmission to flywheel housing to engine. Shout out to everyone that's joined us this evening. I hope you were able to get some information from this broadcast. If so, that's great. Let me know where you're watching from, and if you got any questions. I know I covered a few people that hit us up on chat. Chat's it's not as live as it usually is, just because it's Friday and everyone's probably sick of work already. Got a comment here, says, I would bring my truck to your shop if I were in Texas. What would you say when people say be aware of the dealership? Do you think some mechanics may initially mess your truck up? I would hope not. I mean, if somebody is intentionally messing up a truck, they're just not happy with their job. they should just find another field. And if they're sabotaging anything at work or anything that they're doing, they maybe they should stop doing it. Maybe they should look for something else. And I hope that there's a culture that a dealership wouldn't allow that type of behavior. But I can understand as well that when a dealership becomes a dealership, most of the time they're buying into the name. And there are very strict guidelines to become a dealer. There's a lot of strict guidelines to become a dealership. Now, the only problems that dealerships have is being able to fill a quality technician in that bay. I mean, you see it all the time. These dealerships, it's not about capital. It's not about building a dealership. It's about filling it up with the right people. And I would just recommend, just as our comment from another viewer asked about how to find him a good shop in his area, I just basically mentioned the same way that you would find a good restaurant, you can use those same practices. But I appreciate that comment. And if you were in Texas, I know that you would bring us your truck, and we would guarantee that we would give you the best service possible so that you can keep on trucking with confidence and trust in our experts for lightning fast semi-truck repairs and professional express services to keep you on the road. Give us a shout. All our information is in the description. I even put a link there. So if you are in the DFW area, if you are in the Dallas area, give us a shout. I know you guys like those plugs. Rochester's in the house. New York. Miami, Florida. One love. Appreciate that, man. Appreciate that. What's my favorite truck and least favorite truck? I mean, maintenance is going to come down to it, but I like all types of trucks. I mean, I'm a truck person. I like trucks. I do like trucks. Let me share with you some. If we're talking about trucks, let me share you some photos real quick. Let me go to that real quick. I got some good photos of some nice equipment. I wouldn't say they're my favorite trucks, but shout out to this customer. I hope we were able to exceed your expectations. Now, this truck here, I'm about to show you. It was sitting over the weekend. So this is whenever I took a photo of the truck while it was sitting. So the reason why I bring that up is because more than likely it wouldn't have there wouldn't have been this fluid on the ground that you're about to see. And I'm just sharing you these photos because I like the equipment. The equipment is heavy duty. This is heavy duty equipment. Let's quit talking about it and bring it up. I was just making sure. I was trying to get all the photos together. So I'm gonna go back over to my share screen. One of the comments he's asking if what's my favorite truck. I don't have a favorite truck, but I'm a fan of all types of equipment. Let me get rid of all this other stuff here. And this is a heavy duty. This is the one that had the after treatment system. You can see here DPF filters on this side. But this is a heavy duty, severe duty. That's just a photo of the build that we got going on. I shared with you that earlier, but I wanted to throw that out there. Here's another dump. Since there's a lot of construction going on all over the United States, I recalled, I don't mean to share the customer's name there, but I recall reading an article when it was the beginning of last year, I believe, and it just mentioned how many actual projects had started when it comes to construction, and there was like 20,000 projects that started in regards to construction, rebuilding highways, rebuilding infrastructures. So that is a lot of work, but I do like the display of might on when I see equipment and being able to live up to it. And I like the sleek models too. Let me show you another one. This one was just recent. This is a Evolution. Evolution is very sleek. There's a lot of good technology. See, it depends on the application. Like if I was in construction and I was doing dump, that's the type of work, that's the type of truck that I would like to roll in, that type of dump. If I'm going OTR, now I'm sure if you're a viewer, you have more hours behind the wheel than I do. But from my experience of driving different models, if you're asking drivability, like which one's the smoothest, I would have to say Volvo. Volvo's smooth. Volvo's really smooth. Like driving with one hand smooth. And if you're an automotive driver, you think driving with one hand is no big deal, but it is. So Volvo's got a good ride. I got a couple of images of some Peterbilts and Kenworths. Those also got some good rides. It's very tough, but I just kind of felt like Volvo seems a little bit smoother. Everything just seems a little bit more tighter. To me, and everyone's different. Now, Volvo is not going to be is going to be a little bit more pricier to maintain. Preventive maintenance is going to be a little bit more. That's why in my last video that I released about the DD15 engine, now that's a more common engine. It's more something that you're going to see for somebody that's beginning in the industry, or it can even be a veteran as well. The equipment's being used from the beginning to the end. It's still good equipment. But if we're talking about like if you are a truck driver and you've driven multiple trucks models, which one is your best? Which one is your best? And there will probably be different categories, because there's probably comfortability is different from other. Power is probably different. So I wouldn't be the one. I don't have enough hours behind the wheel, but I could tell you this, that to me, a Volvo seems a little bit more smoother. Appreciate everyone that's joined us this evening. See what chat's talking about. On brake shoes, what can cause one side to wear out more than the other side? S-cam bushings. Well, there's multiple things that it can be. Brake balance is good comment in the chat. Brake balance is very important. It could be a lot of different factors. So inspecting each brake and inspecting to ensure you don't have any hot spots. If you have hot spots, starting with your S-cam bushings is good to make sure nothing's hung up. Ensuring that any previous repairs, making sure the hoses are right length, right sizes. Make sure that whenever you are applying brakes that there's no air leaks. If you do have air leaks, that would cause some brake imbalance. Brake imbalance could also be caused, of course, like you mentioned, hardware. It could be bad slack adjuster that's not adjusting. So getting your brakes adjusted, even if you have an automatic slack adjuster, would be a start. If you're still having these types of brakes being applied or feeling it more in one side than the other, that type of brake imbalance would just cause more brake problems, because it's causing that whatever brake shoe is wearing down the fastest to work the hardest. So for some reason you're not braking evenly, and it could be from previous repairs, wrong applications, worn out hoses, binded hoses, hardware. So I don't have too much history or too much information on your truck, but I would recommend that you get that checked out by somebody with experience on these systems so that they can troubleshoot that and find a correct solution. I had a customer come by and he had the same issue where it wasn't the same. It wasn't brake shoe wear. It was actually the truck was pulling to one side, and he mentioned that he had a repair done already and that the front shoes were already replaced. When we pulled them down, and I don't have the photos readily accessible, but when we broke it down and we did an inspection, you can see that the brakes were getting extremely hot. There were hot spots on that. When that happens, when brake shoes get hot to a point where they get past their temperature, the thermal setting, there's a thermal setting on the particular brake pads. When that happens, it actually hardens the surface of the brake shoe, and that's you can identify that by the brake shoe being really glossy. When that happens, that means that brake shoe got so hot, or the brake material got so hot past its thermal setting that it sealed, and the material combines itself and melts together and becomes hard. So the brake shoe would not even wear down at that time, but the friction power is gone because it's already overheated. And what's bad about that is once that happens and you have a brake that's not applying enough friction, or their friction is lost in the brake shoe due to brake fade, all your other brakes are going to work harder to try to compensate for whatever brake's not causing enough braking force, in turn creating more brake fade and more failure. So we had to recommend replacing the drums and the shoes to that customer, but he said, hey, no, those shoes are brand new. No, but in that case, he was having some problems going on, and those shoes that were put on just recently were already showing hot spots. And it could be frustrating. I know it can be frustrating, and it could take some trial and error in some cases. You could only do so much with checking the air, making sure that everything's functioning correctly. You would have to break the shoes down or break the whole wheel down to inspect everything, inspect the hardware, inspect the camshaft to see if it's getting hung up, inspect the slack adjuster to see if it's working correctly by loosening it. And I mean, only way to really know that the health of your brake system is breaking it down, is removing the wheels, removing the drum, removing all the hardware, inspecting it. Good comment. Yeah, some transmissions, I did mention that some transmissions do have some supports on them. Thank you for mentioning that. Excuse me. Sorry. Thank you for joining us this evening. Good comment. Good comment. Great show today. I hope all this information was useful. If you are in the DFW area and you're trying to keep on trucking with confidence, trust our expert team for lightning fast semi truck repairs and professional services, express services, to keep you on the road mile after mile. I'd also like to remind you that maintenance is like clockwork. Your semi truck needs regular maintenance to keep running smoothly and safely. Don't wait until it's too late. If your rig needs TLC, reach out to us today. All our contact information is conveniently available and listed in the video's description below. Keep your wheels turning and your business booming with our expert service. Our comprehensive digital courtesy inspection and quality control inspections empower the owners with valuable insight on the condition of your truck. So all our information is in the description. I appreciate everyone that's joined us. I hope you have a good evening. I know it's Friday. You're probably already out there spending that check. Put some money aside for maintenance. Don't neglect that truck that's giving you the money. And also, if you need tools, don't waste all your money if you need some more tools. Give us a shout, 972-225-3017. All our information is in the description below of this video. I appreciate everyone that's joined us this evening. And almost closed out without any technical difficulties, but that camera still shuts off on me sometimes. Appreciate everyone that's joined us this evening. Make sure to hit us up. Hit us up in the comments if you have any questions. I do see the comments. I hope everyone has a good evening and good night.